So Ireland has been in the headlines recently when Michael Higgins, the president of Ireland, decided to use a Holocaust memorial event to give a speech that downplayed the Holocaust and attacked Israel. One Jewish woman stood up and turned her back on him for doing that, and she was dragged out of the event. Other Jewish people walked out. The president was asked not to speak at the event because he has a history. This is no accidental insult to Israel or to the Holocaust. He has peddled anti-Israeli and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and written love letters to the president of Iran. So he was asked not to speak at the event. He ignored that. He was asked not to make it political. He ignored that. So this there is a context to this. As we've often said in this podcast, Ireland is one of the most anti-Semitic countries in Europe, and that's a very competitive field.
Yes.
Yes. One town was, like, for example, I mean, there's so many examples. One town was forced to cancel their 4th of July fireworks celebration they had every year because it was a celebration of America that was somehow connected to Jewish Zionists. Who knows? Then another pub, but just for example, a pub quite near where I was brought up, had and still has a sign that says Zionists are not allowed in this pub. We'll put that photograph up there. Yeah, there it is. Zionists not allowed in this pub. This is, Irish pubs are known throughout the world. Like, they're an international brand, the Irish pub, as a welcoming place, a place of fun, a place of joy, a place of welcoming. It's in the name. A house for the public, a public house.
Unless you're a Jew.
Unless you're a Jew in Ireland. In fact, it was Ireland's reaction to the October 7 massacres that inspired us to write the October 7 play.
That inspired us to go to Israel, in fact, in the first place. We were in Ireland when the attack happened on October 7th in Israel. And we were completely shocked by the reaction of people in Ireland who immediately went on to talk about Gaza, went on to talk about electricity being put off, to talk about anything other than the worst massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust. And we couldn't believe it. And we thought, we've got to do something about that. So we went to Israel and interviewed people about the worst day in their lives.
So that's why we went to Israel. We interviewed survivors. We interviewed heroes. It was a unique project. We wanted to do a verbatim play about the story of October 7. So
what happened to people on October 6th started with October 6th. They were having an ordinary day. Life was going on as normal. They were organising themselves for one of their religious festivals. And then October 7th happened and their whole world was changed and changed forever. The whole of Israel's life story has changed forever. Mm-hmm. Extraordinary. And we talked to ordinary people. I think in total about 22 people. And we boiled that down into a play. But it's only the words of the people we interviewed, the words of what they said happened to them that day, from all these different perspectives. Yes. People who were at the Nova party, who were dancing, who were taking drugs, who were, really having a good time. Another perspective, a very religious family who live very near Gaza and who are preparing for the religious festival of Simchat Torah. And then a police officer in Ofakim, all kinds of people, their perspective on what happened, what they saw, what they experienced. And we created a play of that, and it's extremely powerful. And that's not just me saying it. The New York Post, we put the play on in New York, off-Broadway.
It was an off-Broadway play for 6 weeks. An amazing experience. The New York Post said it was spellbinding, powerful, and a sanctuary for truth.
I love that phrase, yes. A sanctuary for truth. And then professor and academic Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer, the very famous lawyer, said the play was absolutely brilliant and life-changing. Mm-hmm. He said the play just allowed people to speak for themselves. You were put back in time. You were hearing their voices. It's brilliantly structured. It has everything you want. It has drama, veritas, emotion, everything you want in a play. And that's why I want this play to be seen by as many people as humanly possible. Let's look at a couple of the audience reactions here.
It was incredible. It told the story most appropriately in such an intense, emotional way. I also, after finding after walking out of the show, I found out that the producer and director was not Jewish. And I found that incredibly profound, that someone who did not necessarily experience personal suffering from this tragedy was standing up for this injustice that's happening. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you come from. But that when you see something that is inherently wrong and cruel, and you have these actors, and it doesn't matter what their background is, but they understand what they're saying. And they're saying a clear and powerful message. And they're expressing to the world what happened. And the truth speaks for itself. And I'm just so grateful for all of those supporting Israel. Because we really have to stand together now. We have to speak for the truth.
The only comparable experience I've had in my life was visiting Auschwitz and other concentration camps in Poland. And to me, just hearing the stories and listening and being there to bear witness is the most important thing, and the way that we can sort of keep their memory alive and remember the atrocities of that day so that it'll never happen again. Extremely emotional to hear their voices and their stories told in their own words and not distorted the way that the world has done so over the last 7 months.
I'm still a bit moved by this verbatim play with all of the testimony from survivors of October 7th. And I think everyone should see this. I specifically think the people in my class at Columbia should come and see this.
Well, as Alan Dershowitz says, it's really important that as many people see this play as humanly possible. And our plan was to bring it to Harvard, Columbia, Princeton, UCLA,
where a lot of these incredible riots that people saw that happened on these college campuses in the United States had happened.
Yes.
We thought, let's go there. So at the end of the play, every night in New York, we would go out, we'd speak to people, and we started to say to people, you know, after the New York run, we're going to go and we're going to take this on a tour of campuses. We're going to go to Columbia. We're going to go to Harvard, and people like clapped and were happy about that. But then at the end, we'd say, you know, and you know what we're going to do as well? I think we're also thinking we're going to go to Ireland. But when we said that, it was kind of a completely different reaction almost to what went before. People literally stood up and applauded. We literally got a standing ovation. So there was a very strong awareness of
the problem. And the problem since then has only got worse, right? So after the run in New York, we approached the Abbey Theatre, Ireland's national theatre for private hire. Now, let's be clear what that is. It's to rent the stage during a dark day when the theatre has no show running. And all theatres all across the world do this. We wanted to put on a staged reading for the Jewish community in Ireland, but actually really for the people of Ireland also, so they could hear the truth about the war in Gaza. Through the voices of those who lived through October 7th. So they would hear there will be no war in Gaza if it wasn't for October 7th. There will be no October 8th in Gaza if it wasn't for October 7th. And it's important that people hear that. So the Abbey Theatre, I mean, it's hard to explain to people who don't know Ireland the significance, the cultural significance of the Abbey. It's like the Kennedy Centre or the Lincoln Centre in America, only much more significant, like 10 times significant. Ireland is a much smaller country. It only has one big national theatre. School children are brought there. Every actor wants to work there.
Every American tourist, by the way, who comes to Ireland is told you have to go to the Abbey Theatre, the National Theatre of Ireland.
And
which is so storied, by the way, right? It has all these stories of extraordinary things that happened.
Bravery. They're so brave.
And they're so brave. They're so courageous.
Yes.
Oh, my God, they're so courageous.
It was founded in 1904 by W.B. Yeats and Lady Gregory. And as the Abbey says itself on its website, these revolutionaries defined the ambition of the Abbey Theatre with their manifesto.
To bring upon the stage the deeper emotions of Ireland.
Well, you know, and they just love it. This is all from their website, talking about how controversial their work has been and how their work inspired riots. So in 1907, Playboy...
The Playboy of the Western World. So in 1907, the Playboy of the Western World by fellow Abbey directors, we're taking this directly from their website, by the way, J. Millington Singh, caused riots in the audience. Later in 1912, during the first tour of America, the cast of the Playboy of the Western World were arrested in Philadelphia for performing immoral and indecent plays. The case was dismissed.
Yes.
And of course, they were all in favour of freedom of expression. In 1909, the Abbey directors struck a note for the freedom of expression.
This is from the website.
This is all of this is from the website. So in 1909, the Abbey directors struck a note for the freedom of expression with the first production of the Shoeing Up of Blanco Posnet, by J.B. Shaw.
George Brown.
It had been refused a licence for performance in England by the Lord Chamberlain's office.
They're so brave. So no better place to bring the October 7th play. And as I say, we only wanted a private hire. And in fact, in reality, I believe as soon as the positive reviews and media attention about October 7th, the October 7 play started coming in, they should have been on the phone arranging an official run on the Abbey stage. I mean, is this not part of what they're boasting about? Freedom of expression.
Certainly, if they're trying to live up to the way that they describe themselves on their website,
yes,
you would have thought that they'd been ringing the phone. So here's off their website. I'm going to put it up there on the screen so you can see it. This is what they say about themselves. Yes. The Abbey Theatre has been and always will be a place where a spectrum of perspectives can commune and bear witness to each other.
That's a statement from the co-directors of the Abbey Theatre, artistic director Katrina McLaughlin and executive director Mark O'Brien.
Well, unless you're a Jew.
Yes. And then
this is also from their website.
Yes.
Our supporters recognise the power of the arts to provoke and move,
unless you're a
and
Jew.
that expressions of diversity, community and empathy are fundamental to healthy civic life.
Unless you're a Jew.
Unless you're a Jew.
And as the National Theatre, we're committed to bringing these benefits to schools and communities across Ireland.
Unless you're a Jew.
Right. So, and then they have just finished a Palestinian play.
They're just about to have a Palestinian. So they're just about to have a Palestinian play opening at the end of February,
which is great, by the way.
Which, by the way, we're totally in favour of. All about it. Called Milk. And it's by Bashar Murkas and Kulud Basel.
And let's put on the video of the National Theatre of Ireland saying how its mission promotes inclusive diversity and equality in theatre, unless you're a Jew. But let's put that video on now.
The National Theatre of Ireland.
The National Theatre of Stories.
The National Theatre of Artists.
The National Theatre of Ideas.
The National Theatre of Traditions.
Making them and breaking them.
The National Theatre of Uproar.
The Abbey Theatre. Our Clin na Monastrach.
Look, obviously...
Perfect place for us to put on the October 7th play. Because in fairness, they've literally spelt it out there that they want us, right?
Stories that disrupt, that's us. Stories that amaze, that's us. So I wrote to the Abbey Theatre on behalf of us and said we want to hire it for a private event and told them about the play. They wrote back and said, look, let's try and work dates. And then they said, actually, you know what? There are no dates this year, and really, we can't really work out any dates next year because at the moment we don't know our schedule. I wrote this at towards the end of 2024, in the fall of 2024, and there was no dates left in 2024, and we don't know our schedule for 2025. And I was thinking, yes, you do. So anyway, I said to them, look, let's just choose a date, further on. But eventually. They wrote.
Eventually, we got this response. Phelim got this response from Laura O'Shea, who is the events coordinator.
Yes.
So Laura O'Shea, she's the events coordinator, Abbey Theatre, and then it's written in Irish. So she's the events coordinator. She's the person in charge of the hiring out of the theatre for special events. Hi, Phelim. Thank you for your continued interest, because obviously a lot of emails have gone back and forth. Let me go back. Thank you for your continued interest. However, for the future, all co-productions and presentations on the Abbey stages are at the initiation of the artistic director. Unfortunately, this October 7th play does not fit the remit of our programming aims and ambitions, but thank you very much for sending on the details. Yeah. Regards, Laura O'Shea, events coordinator.
So they're open to stories that disrupt, they're open to stories that move, they're open to stories that cause riots, unless you're a Jew.
Unless you're a Jew. I think it's unless you're a Jew.
Yes.
I mean, they also say on their website, Phelim, I thought this was very good, they say on their website, our stories, so stories that they accept, teach us what it is to belong.
Unless you're a Jew.
What it is to be excluded.
Unless you're a Jew.
and what it is to exclude.
Mm-hmm.
Artistically, our programme is built on twin impulses and around two questions: who we were and who we are now. Well, I think we know who you are now.
Yes.
I think we know very clearly who you are now.
Yes, and who's excluded and who's not excluded. In fact, talking of excluded and not excluded, what is as she says, not in their remit, which is a very badly worded phrase. What is the remit?
What is in the remit?
The remit of their programming aims and ambitions is to have poetry readings by Palestinian poet Rafif Ziada. Now, again, if you want to give all voices a remit, let's say.
Fair enough, by the way, absolutely. We don't have a problem with that.
Rafif's ambition...
Tell me about Raif's ambition as a poet, Phelim.
Is to make a pariah state of Israel.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know, everyone has to have an ambition.
Yeah, I suppose everyone needs an ambition in life. So she wants to make a pariah state of the state of Israel.
Yes.
Okay.
And calls it a colonial settler state. Again, you know.
So our play, which is the words directly spoken and directly recorded from people who lived through the massacre, the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust in Israel, does not, according to the artistic director at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin, the theatre that is the National Theatre of Ireland, our play does not fit their remit. However, a poet who wants to make Israel a pariah state, she does fit. She does fit.
But I mean, maybe they just had her on and weren't that keen on her. It was more for the variety of voices.
It's interesting because we then did a bit of a deep dive and looked for more information about Katrina McLaughlin, who is the artistic director. So Katrina McLaughlin, from Donegal, by the way, same as myself.
One of your own.
One of my own, who has said we're not suitable. Here's what she said about Raif.
The poet.
We believe art and artists have the power to not only inspire, but to help us make sense of the world around us.
Unless you're a Jew.
Shed light on injustice and be a catalyst for action. Artists are our route to understanding.
Unless it's Jews.
Raif speaks for her people, for Gaza, for Palestine. We are partnering in this special event with Irish artist and activist Donal O'Kelly to amplify Raif's words and create a space for the rest of us to listen and to learn. We ask that those who have the power to stop the inhumanity unfolding in Gaza and deliver an immediate humanitarian ceasefire.
And that's by Katrina McLaughlin and Mark O'Brien, co-directors at the Abbey Theatre.
And Katrina McLaughlin is the artistic director, the same person who decided that we were not part of their remit.
And by the way, as I say, it was a private hire. We weren't asking it to be an Abbey Theatre event. By the way, I think it should be an Abbey Theatre event. The October 7th play, written by two Irish journalists who went to Israel. You know, it's a historic document.
It is a historic document.
It's a historic document what we compiled. And don't forget, the Abbey Theatre, as well as being the National Theatre of Ireland, that's actually in the name of the theatre, it is almost wholly dependent on Irish government money.
Irish taxpayers' money.
Yes, Irish taxpayers' money. It in overall funding, in directed funding, it receives about 70% of its funding from the government. But then the Department of Foreign Affairs, the Department of Tourism, the Irish State Broadcaster, they all fund plays and events there. It probably receives 80 or 90% of its funding from government sources of one type or another.
And I suppose we're wondering as well if the Irish taxpayers who are forking out this huge money, basically €8 million a year, if they're happy with the way their money has been spent. Are they happy with the fact that Jews aren't allowed?
Yes.
That the voices of Jews won't be heard? Yes. That the voice, in fact, of a poet will be... you get the voice of the poet who says she wants to make the Israeli state a pariah, but you won't get to hear the voices of the people who witnessed the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. I don't know.
And don't forget, by and large, the anti-Semitism project in Ireland is an elite-driven project. You know,
the theatre is very elite.
Yes. So this is not representative of many citizens of Ireland, this anti-Semitism, this anti-Israeli attitude. Now, because of the state media control and the leftist media in Ireland, there is considerable support for it, but it's not. It is not representative of many. I don't know whether it's a silent majority or a silent large minority, but there are people who want the voices of Israelis, and there are also people who may be pro-Palestinian but also want to hear the other side on the National Theatre in Ireland. So
it's tough. It's tough though if you're in Ireland, where certain voices are censored. Certain voices they won't allow them to be heard. Yes. They're not part of the remit. The last thing, obviously, the Abbey Theatre wants to do is to allow the voices of the Jews who witnessed the massacre of their families.
Ireland is now a cold house for Jews, culturally, politically. And by the way, there was a building in Dunleary outside Dublin that had a swastika painted on it recently. Look, this is nothing new. It is no coincidence James Joyce wrote Ulysses, the hero, the outsider. Joyce wrote about outsiders in Irish society, people who felt alienated from the mainstream. The outsider
Leopold Bloom.
Is Leopold Bloom. This was written in the 1920s or late teens in Ireland. He was a Hungarian, of Hungarian descent. He was a Dubliner of Hungarian descent, and he was Jewish. Joyce knew the story then. The story is the same now, only worse. And the National Theatre is a shadow of its former self. Once it welcomed dissident voices, once it welcomed stories that challenged, stories that disrupt. Now it wants stories that confirm the oldest hatred on the planet.
Jews need not apply. Jewish stories need not apply, is obviously what they're saying.
These are compelling stories. They're amazing stories. They're moving stories. They're emotional stories because they're true. Nothing hurts like the truth. Nothing moves like the truth. Let's play a clip from the play.
And you watch this and tell us if you think that these stories aren't worth hearing and aren't worth amplifying and aren't worth being heard by people all over the world.
This is from the New York run off-Broadway play. It tells the story of Shani and other people who were from the Nova Party and their attempts to escape with their lives. From the biggest massacre at a musical festival ever and the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. So let's play the clip, and if you want to help get this out, go to October7ththeplay.com.
There's an opening in the leaves that cast a ray of sunshine on me. The glitter on my face and jewelry catches the light, and I think it's really dangerous, so I start removing all my jewelry. I have a necklace, and on it is written, Vish Marak, the blessing of the priest Yevarak, Adonai Vish Marak. The Lord will save you and will guard you. I'm not a religious person, but I really felt that I needed that protection. So I held it tight, and I started to pray. And suddenly I saw a bird flying. And the bird flew and landed on a branch close to my hand. And I don't know how to explain it or to describe the feeling, but I really felt that my grandfather of blessed memory was with me. When I got home later that night and told my mom, she told me the date my grandfather died, October 7th, 2016.
So the Abbey Theatre, as they say on their website, has been and always will be a place where a spectrum of perspectives can commune and bear witness to each other. Well, you just saw Shani's story, her perspective of almost being massacred for being Jewish, and that's her communing and bearing witness to each other. And
apparently that's not in the remit of the Abbey Theatre. I got the most amazing message, an email from Shani's mother. And I want to read it to you. After the play. And I want to read it to you because actually in my whole life, I have never received a message as powerful. And I think it's worth reading it in full. And I'd like people at the Abbey Theatre maybe to listen to these words of the mother of a child, of that girl that you've just seen depicted on stage who nearly lost her life. Hi, I'm Addie. I am Shani Arditi's mother. She is one of the characters in your very important play, but my very real daughter. I am grateful she is here with us, alive, and can tell in her own words. There are days that the pain of what we are going through as the Jewish people leaves me breathless. Some days the sadness is deep and dark, but mostly I choose to be thankful for the private miracle that happened to us. Choose to see the ray of light that exists around us. And you are a ray of light and hope in human goodness and spirit. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for seeing us. For the idea to express in their own words, and for the important voice of each and every one of them that you give meaning to. Hating is easy. Being deaf to the truth requires nothing. Love makes you exposed and vulnerable, but it's the only way to leave a pure mark on the world. I appreciate your pure heart and sending you love beyond time and place. May you always be blessed.
Abbey Theatre. Hating is easy. Being deaf to the truth requires nothing. Love makes you exposed and vulnerable, but it is the only way to leave a pure mark on the world. Abbey Theatre, are you interested in making a pure mark on the world? Or are you interested in being comfortable? And
are you interested only in being deaf to the truth because it requires nothing?
Yes. We're not finished yet. Ireland, I think Ireland is in Ireland. There's an appetite in Ireland still for stories that disrupt, and I think we'll bring that to them. So if you want to help us, by the way, bring the story of October 7th. We've already had it in Princeton. We've already had it in UCLA. We have it in New York for 6 weeks. Let's bring it around the planet. Go to October7theplay.com
and give what you can. Donate, please, to help us get it, because we are not giving up, even if despite, and in fact, all this opposition is only making us more resolute that we are bringing this play to Ireland one way or the other.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.